Hello, everyone. Welcome to the GLORIO Chat, the best anime podcast on the internet. I'd like to make a little announcement at the top of the show here. In light of seeing Nintendo suing Palworld for patent infringement, I think it's time that we here at the GLORIO Chat begin defending our own legal rights.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So hear me out. You know, technically, this iteration of the podcast started in 2015.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I'm not a lawyer, but I believe, legally speaking, that means every anime podcast that has been created since 2015 is essentially copying our process. I mean, that checks out, right?
No, I think so.
You said I'm not a lawyer at the beginning, so that means you must be right.
Exactly. I might have read something like that on Reddit or something. I don't know, but yeah. So all other anime podcasts, you know, I'm talking to you, Trash Taste formed in 2020. You'll be hearing from my lawyers in the near future.
You can send the check to the PayPal account.
Yes, I will have my. will have them include my PayPal account, and we're coming for you. But yeah, what a ridiculous case that is going to be with Nintendo. But anyway,
I'm legitimately surprised it's happening at all because they were quiet for so long. I kind of just figured Nintendo looked at it and figured there wasn't really a leg to stand on. What we didn't realize is that it was actually the exact opposite, that Nintendo was staying quiet this whole time because they were
actually consulting with their lawyers. Right. Yes.
The thing that's weird to me is that they're doing it off of our patent rights, and it's like, what patents are you even talking about? Like, I feel like you'd have a better would have a better case if it's like your designs are obviously infringing on our design.
So that's a curious thing, right? Because I think
the design
in some
thing
ways,
is impossible to prove a lot of times.
It's
right?
It's very difficult to prove legally, anyways, that you stole somebody else's design, because
right.
You're essentially trying to prove a negative, right? It's very easy. All a person has to say is I've never seen Pikachu.
Right.
Prove it. Prove I've seen Pikachu.
Well,
I feel you cannot exist in Japan without seeing Pikachu.
Right, but I am just saying, in the legal sense, right? Where's the legal proof that I have seen Pikachu?
Yeah.
What's funny is the quote that killed me as I was reading about this was from the whatever the company is that makes Palworld. The boss guy was like, "Oh, we would never do anything to harm the legacy of Pokemon. I love Pokemon. I grew up playing Pokemon." So that puts a hole in that argument. But also, clearly, I don't know how you would not see this as disrespectful to Pokemon, or I don't know. I certainly no love lost for Palworld here, but I don't see how legally they have anything to stand on.
I mean, I feel like this mostly validates my choice to get into the other big monster capturing franchise, Monster Rancher.
Oh yeah.
I got all these CDs I'm going to spin. It's going to be great.
The last thing I will say, just a joking aside, my understanding is that again, I don't think whatever. I'm not a lawyer. I can't speak to how solid of a case this is. But what I've heard is that apparently the Pokemon Company does have a patent on the gameplay mechanic of capturing a creature with a spherical object.
Yeah, that was
specifically the Pokeball, the orb.
Yes,
yeah.
Or specifically that as a gameplay mechanic. It's sort of that shitty. What was that studio? The studio that the Lord of the Rings game. They patented the Nemesis system or whatever.
Oh right, Shadow of War or what?
Yeah,
Monolith.
Apparently right. Apparently the Pokemon Company does have some kind of thing in the patent office like that.
I don't think you should be able to patent game mechanics.
No, I don't think so either. But the point I'm saying is that is probably
why what they're standing on. Yeah,
that is why they think they have a case. Is what I mean.
I did see speculation about it. Obviously, nobody really knows because Nintendo hasn't officially said anything, but that would seem to be the most obvious thing. But
yeah,
I suspect it won't go anywhere. But Nintendo. It's been a while, but Nintendo does historically love suing people. So
litigious bastards over there at Nintendo.
Yeah. I mean, this will end the way all these cases end, which is an out of court settlement and a bunch of lawyers buying new BMWs. So,
I wonder if Jack Kirby retired off of that Nintendo money many years ago. Gosh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. I always think of Tetris, but we got to move on. So, anyway, it is time for our next season preview. We're changing seasons again.
The wheels keep turning.
The wheels keep turning, whether we like it or not. But I think I mentioned this last time. We're in a weird spot where we're kind of doing this slightly later than we normally would, but still kind of too early to end the season. There are some shows ending right now as we're recording, but we work with what we got. Nevertheless, we will be doing our fall 2024 season preview. And before we get into it, I'll just introduce everybody. I'm Jel. I'm joined by Iro.
I'm still here. I'm not dead yet.
Still hanging in there. We're joined by G.
Honestly, Joe, I thought you were going in a completely different direction with that like copyright whatever bit.
Okay.
Because of I thought you were gonna go after the Toriyama estate. Because apparently there's a character in Dragon Ball DAIMA named GLORIO.
Oh
that's
yeah,
that's right.
We will talk. I was going to mention him, but I did not. I out of respect for Toriyama Sensei.
I mean, add it to the list with God's Blessing on This Wonderful World and Oshino Co for people we should sue for stealing our identities.
If Akira Toriyama approached me for the rights to name a character GLORIO, I'd have gladly given it to him.
Well, he didn't, and so we got to get that bag.
That's fair enough. All right, that'll be the second lawsuit.
Now he's dead. We don't even have to feel guilty about it.
Yeah, now we don't have to feel bad about it. Oh, God, Jesus Christ!
All right. Bit over.
Yes, that was all a bit. Yes, let's move on. We are joined once again by Zig.
Can you tell you're running out of people to be on this podcast yet?
Look, we're happy to have you, Zig. Yes, while it is true, our rotation has been busy. We are glad to have you on.
Thank you.
All right, so let's get into fall 2024 anime. A lot of big name things happening.
Yes.
Which is not always. I'm not going to say not in our wheelhouse, but it's, typically we don't always cover the big name like shonen shows and all those things. But there are a lot of very popular things, returning from, either recently or way in the past this season. And, a couple of other new things that are probably going to be big hits as well. But, G, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think maybe the thing that's really striking about this season is, like, almost everything that is, like, high profile coming out this season is an adaptation. Like, it is an established name, right? Like, not only just what we're covering, but just even the things we're not covering, right? It's season 2 of such and such, season 7 of such and such, right? Like, it's all sequels or adaptations or continuations, right? And
yep.
I think we talked about this in the past, right? That, like, the nature of the anime market has very much led towards this kind of world we live in, right? Where, like,
I mean, it's not just anime, it's all media, right?
True,
media
yes,
is trying
right?
to leverage existing stuff.
Right. And not necessarily a bad thing, right? Like, I think, I think all of us here have enjoyed some, many of these adaptations, but it really does feel like, I don't know. I'm sure there was original anime this season, but they seem to be in very short supply.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are a couple of originals, but yeah, not a whole lot. Yeah, a lot of returning stuff. I mean, out of the things that we normally wouldn't watch. I mean, we've got we've got the other Sword Art Online coming back, Gun Gale Online.
The only good Sword Art Online.
Which,
I did watch that first season.
Right. With Yosuke Kuroda on series composition.
And it does have plenty of problematic lesbians in it.
Yeah, right up his alley. Is it wrong to pick up girls in a dungeon? Season 5. Bleach is coming back. If anybody still cares about Bleach in 2024.
I know, right?
Blue Exorcist, 7 Deadly Sins.
Blue Exorcist.
Blue Exorcist.
Yeah.
Wait, really? Jesus. Wow.
Damn, they really scraped the bottom of the barrel now, huh?
Yeah, I mean, we're
there's all kinds of old shows coming back. This is I think this is the second time there's both a Love Live and an Idolmaster running at the same time.
Wow, head to head.
Although I feel like in 2024 the Love Live has won, so
I would say so.
I feel like Idolmaster has not picked up new fans in 10 years, but
I mean, it's cyclical. Another Idol franchise will rise, and Love Live will fall.
Bang Dream or what have you.
If Artemis was on, we would have her talk about Natsumi's Book of Friends, which is somehow at season 7, which is wild for any anime. But
it's got wide appeal.
Yeah, a lot of things coming back. I think there will be a lot of people happy with the season. I don't know if it's just like a broad shift or whatever, or just fall season is usually when people bring in the popular stuff, the big guns, right? So I don't know.
It's one of the heavy hitter seasons,
yeah. But as far as things that we may actually check out, and perhaps the biggest most mainstream of them all, there is a new Dragon Ball coming back.
Yes.
Dragon Ball Daima. It's tell me if you've heard it before, but Goku is a kid now.
Okay.
I gotta love. I think it was an official description I was reading where they literally say Goku and friends get turned to kids, but it's not the same as GT.
I mean, look, that is a very understandable disclaimer to advertise under all circumstances, quite frankly.
That went so
Welcome to the Grand Tour. Welcome to the Grand Tour, Dragon Ball GT.
I forget. Are any of you a GT apologist, or are we just all?
No,
I like parts of GT, but I would never rank it on the same level, right?
Yeah.
The only thing I kind of like about Dragon Ball GT is its American opening.
I like Pan.
I mean, the original rap opening.
Hell yeah!
See, the only thing I uncritically like about Dragon Ball GT is its Japanese opening. So
no, the Japanese opening is legitimately great. But
it's a classic.
I watched it on Toonami. My brain is poisoned by a very specific kind of.
Well, the thing is, there's also an English version of that Japanese opening.
That's right.
That is on most modern releases of it.
Interesting.
I like Pan. I like the wacky little robots. I like Swaggy Space Adventures.
Too bad it's not much of that.
Right, exactly. Right. It's
if it was the show in the opening credits, it would be a much more interesting show.
Well, you guys don't like the Ultimate Life Form Baby or whatever?
Super Baby 2.
Super Baby.
Super Baby 2, I think.
How about the Black Star Dragon Ball?
Yes, some Mega Shenron.
All right. So
GT is fine.
Yeah, I mean, Gogeta.
One last hot take from GT. I might like Super Saiyan 4 better than any of the transformations.
You don't like Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan?
Yeah.
I mean, that is the thing, right? Like GT4, better or worse. Like there are visual signifiers to it that are unique to it, right? Like, for better or worse, right? The Dragon Ball Super era is kind of defined by Goku getting new hair colors and little else, right?
Yeah.
So, there is something to, Dragon Ball GT,
it's weird.
It's weird. It's inspired, right?
Right. Personality and whatnot, yeah.
I remember, being a kid and, the kids at school who, had access to, a local import shop telling me like, "Oh man, like have you ever like Goku's next Super Saiyan form, he becomes a monkey again," and I'm like, "That's crazy. You're making shit up." No
I mean, you
way.
can see how they get there because like Super Saiyan 3, like he doesn't have eyebrows anymore. His brow juts out like it's a more like almost
more like ape
like, right? And so of course the next level is even closer to this like primal Saiyan form.
Right.
Well,
I feel like we are giving way too much thought to this.
Yeah.
All right, Daima.
Yeah, so Daima,
Dragon Ball babies.
That putting GT side, even I think most of us have been checked out of Dragon Ball personally for a long time, except maybe the movies.
I'm broadly aware of what happens in Super. I did not watch all of Super.
I watched like
my understanding in Super is that they fight some strong guys, and then there's some even stronger guys.
I watched like a couple episodes where they fight Jiren, and that was about it. In
the
Super.
Dragon Ball Super movies are pretty good, at least Superhero and Brawly.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I did not like Resurrection F.
No, I mean, okay, some of the Super movies were pretty good.
They still crank it up here and there if they need to. But
the thing I will say in Daima's favor, having watched some like of the PVs, like Dragon Ball Daima might be the first Dragon Ball TV series to have art direction.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, Super is not a very good-looking show. And to be clear, I recognize that I suffer heavily from Z nostalgia, and I know that there are rough-looking episodes of Dragon Ball Z. Believe me, I know that Z is not always the Frieza fight. It does not always look that good, all right? But Super wasn't just suffering from a fidelity issue. Super also just had a particularly unappealing look to it, right?
I think, to me, sorry to interrupt you, but just like, to me, Super is absolutely one of those shows that suffers by being done in DigiPaint.
Definitely.
As opposed to, like, I know we go on and on about how hand-drawn cells look nicer than DigiPaint, but it's really one of those where the comparison is super telling and everything just looks kind of flat and lifeless.
Well, it also feels like a studio that is like somehow like 10 years behind the curve, right? There are many studios today that animate in DigiPaint and know how to make it look good,
absolutely.
Right? Like Super felt like a show from like 2004 visually.
My understanding is for much of Super was when Toei was trying to like rehabilitate their image of like crunching employees. And they were like, look at how we're mandating that they go home at certain times, but they did not lower the workload or deadlines in any way.
I was going to say the actual way to alleviate the crunch would be to hire more people.
Right. But that does not excuse anything.
Right. So Daima, it's again, I don't, again, look, we just had our GT discussion, right? Like, for better or worse, that comparison makes Daima kind of a hard sell, I think, for a lot of people, right? Like, I think, again, like, this probably speaks to the Eastern-Western divide of Dragon Ball fandom, right? Yeah. Like, for Japan, Kid Goku is Goku, right? Like, when they imagine Goku, they are thinking of little kid Son Goku.
Original Goku. You ask
Americans, who is Goku? We think of adult Goku, Kakarot.
I mean, we think of Super Saiyan Goku.
Yeah. Right. And so to make him a kid again, I think is like one of those decisions that broadly, I get it. It probably makes sense from a certain standpoint, but it also would not surprise me if it maybe struggles to find that foothold among American audiences. But again, it is a nice looking show. Like, again, I mean, obviously PVs show all the nicest stuff, but like, the nicest looking shots in the Daima PV look nicer than literally any clip I have ever seen of Dragon Ball Super. So,
except the bits they stole from the movies.
Sure.
So, the thing is, they reanimated that shit.
Yeah, I was going to say, I remembered as I said that. I actually reanimated them.
Daima also has the big asterisk next to it, which is the final thing that Toriyama was closely involved with before his passing.
Although it was again like it was not. He did not write it. Right, it was,
but like he like planned out much of story and stuff.
I had read some like direct quotes from him about it, and he was like, I didn't want to be involved with it, and then once I started getting into it, I actually contributed a lot of the story and all that.
Yeah,
so by all accounts, he was quite excited.
It's still his creative direction, right?
I think despite what I literally just said about it maybe struggling to find a foothold, I will now contradict that immediately and say DAIMA will probably enjoy kind of what Sandland did of the kind of post-Toriyama bump, right? Like, I think a lot of people will probably check out DAIMA because it is the last piece of Dragon Ball that Toriyama will ever touch, right? I mean, even me, right? Again, you tell me, like, I've joked about this with Iro before, right? In a world where Toriyama is still healthy and alive, I probably completely ignore DAIMA. I look at DAIMA and go, man, fuck that. Toriyama's a hack. That dude is, like, past his prime. Fuck this shit. Like, I haven't even liked Toriyama in, like, 20 years. But in a world where, like, we were all collectively mourning the passing of one of the greatest mangaka to ever do it, I go, all right, one last ride. All right, DAIMA, let's
see, I think I'm a step up on that ladder, where if something is called Dragon Ball, I will sort of give it a minimum amount of attention, no matter what it is, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, the name itself is still enough to at least attract, like, from me.
I feel like even with Super, even though I didn't watch it, I had my ears to the streets enough to know, oh, maybe I'll jump in and watch this fight with Jiren or something like that, right? You know, broadly what's going on with it, because it's just that much of a part of the the anime world, and and we all have love in our hearts for the older Dragon Ball stuff, right? So if anything, this is like I've started thinking now it's time for me to start watching the old Dragon Ball with my nephew. So I'm trying to figure
Dragon
out
Ball or Dragon Ball Z.
I think I'm just gonna do Z. I'll start with Z. Yeah, I don't know if he'll be into the original Dragon Ball, but it might be.
How old is your nephew, if you don't mind me asking?
He's 12.
I'm just surprised he hasn't discovered Dragon Ball by himself.
I feel like 12...
he is too old and also too young to appreciate Dragon Ball.
And he's
right. When you're 12, you probably look at like original Dragon Ball, and you're like, ew, that shit's for kids.
That's a baby show.
As an adult.
He's a pretty mature 12, and he actually just told me that he just watched Avatar on his own will.
Sure. Okay.
The Last Airbender?
Okay. You could maybe do the final Tenkaichi Budokai. And then Z.
At the end of Dragon Ball,
it's probably easier just to start with the Z.
I think you're right. Just start with Z,
But if he gets really insistent about who's this Piccolo fellow, then you can do that. But
I mean, just tell him he's the world's greatest babysitter.
The Demon King.
I'll test the waters, and I still got to figure out if am I going to try to do Kai or I'm going to do the original.
That's a way tougher question.
As somebody who fairly recently watched every second of original Dragon Ball, you should do Kai.
Yeah, that's what I've been leaning toward. But Kai is harder. Kai is harder to get a hold of, right? Actually.
Set sail and you'll find it.
Yes.
Well, I'll keep you all posted on that one, I guess, but we'll see. I haven't personally watched. I've watched up to Frieza Saga several times. I've never actually watched past Frieza more than once. More than the first time I watched it, like 20.
I mean, it's a lot of episodes.
So, I was gonna say it's a lot.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Anyway, I think like we all have enough love in our hearts for Dragon Ball that we're willing to give DAIMA a fair shake. I don't think anybody's expecting anything earth-shattering, right?
No.
All right.
Well, talking about an equally important mangaka.
Yeah. While we're on the topic of the greatest mangakas of all time, there's so it's not a new series, but a remake of Ranma Half coming out.
So is that how you say it? Because I've always said Ranma 1/2.
Same. I'm a Ranma 1/2 guy.
Okay. We can say it that way. That's fine.
I mean, I think it's in Japanese. It's just. Actually, no, I'm not sure.
I've heard it both.
Is this the Mandela effect? Is this the Bernstein Bears?
I don't know. I've heard some people say it's supposed to be Ranma Half, but also I might be making that up because I heard too many people say it's supposed to be Hunter x Hunter.
I've heard it both ways, so we can say Ranma 1/2 if that makes.
Are we finally admitting I was right about Spy X Family?
Spy Family.
Anyway, yes.
Yeah.
So this is, of course,
Banner 1/2 is how I've always thought about it in my head. Yeah.
One of the most popular and important manga and anime series ever.
This is another Rumiko Takahashi can't miss. Perhaps the biggest. Perhaps the biggest of her not missing.
If you put a gun to my head, I would say this is the Rumiko Takahashi manga.
Yes, I feel similar.
Yeah.
And I guess the problem that I guess we have to bring up, right, with this new one is, like, obviously it kind of lives... this is probably... It's not the same studio, but, like, this is probably being motivated by the same factors that led to the Urusei Yatsura remake last year.
I think it was the year before, actually. It's been run.
It ran for a while.
There's been several seasons worth of it.
And
it might have just ended like recently, but
yes.
I guess I don't know. I don't know anybody who kept up with that remake, right? Like, I feel like a lot of people kind of felt that remake didn't really add much to...
My understanding is it was pretty popular in Japan, at least.
Okay,
I mean, hell, they made the whole thing, so
right.
It must have been some level of popular.
Yeah. I guess, like, I've definitely seen a sentiment kind of similar to the one with Urusei Yatsura of, like... I mean, maybe this is a real boomer take, but I've seen a lot of people say that, like, the original Ranma 1/2 anime, like, broadly still holds up, like, visually even. Like,
right.
It's still a pretty good-looking anime. And so, here's the thing. Functionally, I know the answer to this question. The question being, why make a new Ranma 1/2 anime? It's because, you got a new generation of people you could sell it to.
The answer is brand extension.
Right, but I guess the question is, like, what is, it's Mappa, right? Like, what is...
Yeah, I think that's the thing which makes it interesting, is that Mappa, a studio known for, high-quality productions, often at various costs, but...
Indeed.
It's certainly not a studio that you would normally tap to produce something which might go on for 100 episodes plus.
Right. That's kind of what I was getting at, is, like, I mean, tone and approach and working conditions aside, Mappa has always felt like a 1 core, 2 core at most studio, right? Like,
they make very concentrated, flashy, high-profile things.
They don't really tend to stick it in, go in for the long haul, I mean.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised because it was David Production that did Urusei Yatsura, right?
Right. Okay.
Yes.
And that feels like they have that's in their wheelhouse of doing.
Right.
That's a studio with some experience doing 100 episodes of something.
I mean, old property, right? Like,
they were doing that Captain Tsubasa remake as well, so
yeah. So, like, that made sense, but yeah, for Mappa, I mean, Mappa at this point probably do whatever they want, but it is a little unusual there. But yeah, I mean, it looks like they're not really reinventing the wheel on this at all. Like, it just looks like they're doing a pretty straightforward adaptation. So yeah, it's like...
And honestly, would you want them to? That's the question.
I don't know.
Well, that's the thing. And then that comes down to the question of, I mean, yes, as a business decision, you kind of understand why you're doing it, but, like, artistically, why would you do this?
Right. Like, I'm not asking for, like, a dramatic reinterpretation of the Ranma 1/2 story, but it's like, I guess, yeah, again, it's kind of like the Urusei Yatsura thing. It's like, I think I would like to see it maybe take some swings, right? Like it doesn't have to, like, break the mold entirely, but I would love to see, like, if you're going to do a modern remake, right? Like try some shit, right? Fuck around.
Yeah, maybe we'll get some, like, cooler animated fight scenes or something. I don't know, but action.
I wonder how this lands in an era that is more aware of trans people and such.
I think that Ranma was... I'm never going to call it progressive, but I think it was mostly harmless.
Yeah,
from my perspective, for its age.
Okay.
I wouldn't know, right? So,
yeah, there was. Look, don't get me wrong. There's definitely some stuff in there that hasn't aged well.
Fuck Haposai. All my homies hate Haposai.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't think that there's anything in there that you couldn't excise that would affect the like tone or story in any way. You know, that there is no problematic content that couldn't be cut out for a modern reinterpretation. So
Sure.
I don't really see that as a huge issue one way or another. You know, I think they should and will cut out anything that is past the line in this.
I guess like how obnoxiously horny was the new Ursa Yatra in such a case.
I mean,
stuff I saw of it was
right.
I saw a few episodes,
but also that's core to that series' identity, I suppose.
Yeah, and also, you know, it's so broad and
over like pantomime.
Yeah,
right?
it's just you can't take it seriously because it's not meant to be taken seriously.
Right. I mean, it's kind of like, you know, I think like a lot of Rumiko Takahashi works are kind of horny in the same way that like, I don't know, like Lupin the Third is horny.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's like it's practically slapstick.
Or like Master Roshi is horny in Dragon Ball, where he's like clearly meant to be the butt of the joke.
Right.
Yeah. Well, this whole conversation just activated a whole mental tangent for me about my main frame of reference for this series, which is, I don't know if I've ever talked about this on the podcast. I've told you guys about it, but an old card game called Ani-Mayhem. That was like a 90s. I'm not going to get too deep into this because trust me, I could get deep into this. But
is it just anime top trumps?
It was like a playable card game coming up in the time that Magic was getting popular, basically in the 90s, and it was made by one of the American distributors at the time. So this was not a Japanese. This was an American made thing. Mm-hmm. I think it was Genion. That's God, correct.
I haven't thought about Genion in a while.
If that's a blast, if that's a blast from the past, I think it was Genion, and they made an anime card game using whatever random properties that they could license for this game, which was the biggest ones were Ranma 1/2 and like I guess Bubblegum Crisis.
Sure.
And then there were like a bunch of other random ones that I've only seen on Sci-Fi Channel, like Armitage and Devil Hunter Yoko and all those other things. But anyway.
Oh yeah.
But yes, I remember if you actually got the Ranma card to play them, you would have to get both the male card and the female card. And there were certain events that would swap them back and forth, and they had slightly different stats.
Predating Magic's morph mechanic by quite a few years.
Yeah, the female card had one less attack but one higher defense and also higher seduction.
Yeah,
of course, naturally.
Yeah, but yeah, that was an interesting game. My favorite character was Pris from Bubblegum Crisis because if you got her power suit, she always did 1 damage guaranteed. But anyway, I can't go further into Ani-Mayhem.
The 90s is an incredibly interesting time because all the Japanese licensors were asleep at the wheel and let a bunch of wild Western-made shit out about their properties.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Okay, one last thing I will leave you with on this. I guess it was popular enough that they could do a second set, like an expansion set, and somehow they did get Dragon Ball Z.
Oh wow,
sure.
And it just ruined the game because all the Dragon Ball they tried to like keep the power levels appropriate, so like all the Dragon Ball characters were way more powerful than everybody else in the game.
Yeah, I mean,
but yeah. Anyway, the 90s. What a time.
Yeah. Tune in for next podcast, the Ani-Mayhem breakdown.
Maybe I'll write about that at some or something. I feel like it needs to be canonized somewhere, that the existence of that game. But yes,
Ranma is kind of good at martial arts. Piccolo blew up a moon. It's
right,
a little unbalanced.
Completely different tiers of power. Yeah. So anyway,
hope the anime's good. I guess.
I guess so. Yeah. I feel like we spent a lot of the time talking about Dragon Ball and Ranma has been just reminiscing here, which maybe that.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, that's what they want us to do.
Right. You bring back these boomer ass franchises. Like, what else are we gonna do?
It's gonna activate my old man card here. Yes,
but also that's the thing, right? Like Ranma 1/2 is a classic. Everybody knows it's a classic. Most people have at least a passing familiarity with it, or if not, these show or manga itself the stuff it spawned. So unless they do something wild with this, I'm not sure how much can be said, really.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on to some new things then. That I guess we were going to predict are going to be big deals. Some Shonen Jump properties here, right? So
yeah.
The first one is this, do we just say this Don da Don? Is that all it is?
Yes, that is correct. Just say it like that. Yep.
There's no other weird pronunciation or whatever.
You could add a dramatic spin to it. Don da Don.
Yeah, that's how I kind of read it.
Or you do it like the opening to Dragon Ball GT.
Yeah. So I've been told that this is a big deal, so maybe you guys can explain what it is better than I can.
Well, gee, I believe you have seen some Don da Don already.
Yes. G Kids distributed a special early showing of the first 3 episodes of Don da Don in theaters. And
that was also available over here, although I did not take advantage.
And I went to go see that, and yeah, I could get into like how that's kind of an interesting, like fascinating, like business decision, because my understanding is that thing has like made like $1 million in box office sales, which to be fair, it's not a lot for a theater run, but like when you think of it in the context of like how much it costs to make an episode of anime, like that's a pretty good return on just literally packaging 3 episodes and putting it in a theater.
I wonder if they made back their distribution costs. I'm willing to bet they did out of that, even after you take account the theater's cut.
Right, for sure. But anyways, yeah, so, I'll speak to the 3 episodes I saw, but to kind of, like, summarize it first, since now we are getting into the actual, like, things that maybe people have not heard of. Don da Don is, yeah, it is probably one of the major names currently in Weekly Shonen Jump. Well, not Weekly Shonen Jump, technically. It is published in Jump Plus, their online publication. Stop me if you've heard this before. Don da Don is a supernatural battle manga.
Right.
It feels like supernatural battles have become commonplace recently.
Yes,
potentially so. Yes, it's about Momo, a high school girl who comes from a family of self-proclaimed spirit mediums, meeting her classmate Okarun, who is a fanatic for like aliens, like cryptids, occult. Yeah, And long story short, they kind of get into a fight because Momo believes in ghosts and Okarun believes in aliens, and they scoff at the others like irrational delusions, right? And so they dare each other to visit respectively like haunted places of their respective beliefs, right? So Okarun goes to a stereotypically creepy Japanese tunnel in the mountains, and Momo goes to a place where supposedly people have been abducted by aliens. And long story short, Momo gets abducted by aliens and Okarun gets possessed by a ghost. And it sort of like follows the adventures of the two, like from that inciting event. The thing I would say about Don da Don is like, again, like, this is the shonen curse, right? I don't want to like praise it too much because like there's always like the manga is still good at the moment, but you're always kind of waiting for the moment when a shonen manga like goes off course and like crashes horribly.
Yep.
But the thing I would say that has worked very well about Don da Don is like, I think it has a very charming cast of characters. Like it is the way it has been described and has been marketed is that it is a supernatural battle manga crossed with a rom-com, essentially, right? Like it is about these two characters, kind of getting to know each other better as they kind of battle against these supernatural foes that, are coming after them. And it works. Like the dynamic they have is quite charming. Like the surrounding cast is like pretty good, and goes without saying, but like Don da Don is probably the current nicest like looking manga being published by Shonen Jump. Like the art it's a weekly that looks like a monthly. Like the detail and fidelity of like the pages, like Don da Don is one of those manga that like loves to hit you with like multiple double page spreads per chapter, right. And it's really effective. It's a very kinetic, intense, very, very visually exciting manga. And so that kind of made it curious when it was going to get adapted, right? Because Dandadan is not a Jujutsu Kaisen or a Demon Slayer, i.e. manga with kind of unimpressive art getting the anime glow up. We're talking about a manga that already looks really good out the gate, getting an anime adaptation. And so when you hear the announcement that Science Saru is adapting Dandadan, it's kind of an inspired choice, right? Science Saru, the studio founded by Yuasa, right? You know, Eizouken, Ping Pong, the animation, Japan Sinks, no, the Heika story.
Well, 3 out of 4 ain't bad.
Yeah, you know, the recent Scott Pilgrim show.
Oh, right.
And having watched the first 3 episodes, I think Science Saru is cooking with this. Like, it's
okay.
I was really impressed by the decisions they made to adapt Dandadan. It kind of feels like Science Saru recognized, at least based on the first 3 episodes I watched, which, to be fair, we all know that those are the best looking episodes of any given adaptation.
Yep.
But it feels like Science Saru really recognized that they could not match the manga's like detail. And so they use a lot of other tricks unique to animation to capture the same feeling. Like, I would say the Dandadan anime it felt like it had like particularly slick directing. Like, it's a very well-timed anime, if that makes sense. Like, they use timing really effectively to like communicate a similar vibe and feeling. You know, there's a really effective use of light and color to like try to capture again, kind of the feeling of the moments rather than the actual like technical recreation of them.
Do you know who directed the episodes you watched, or?
The director was Fuga Yamashiro. I remember this because it wasn't just the first 3 episodes. They also had a 30-minute like interview with the original mangaka, the director, and some of the voice actors. And I'm not familiar with Yamashiro's work. Like, I know that he is a Science Saru veteran. Like, he has basically touched everything Science Saru has ever worked on. He kind of described himself as a very technically minded director, right? Like, you know, he showed this was a neat detail in the G Kids thing that I actually did appreciate. He showed that he just has like multiple binders where he just storyboards. Like, he creates storyboards based on movies and TV shows he watches. Like, like he'll watch a live action
as like a study.
Yeah, and then just to study it, he'll storyboard it. I was like, oh, that's actually pretty neat. Like, and he kind of like says that he uses that as his library of like inspiration for like how to like capture moments. And that's why I do say that, look, I think the Dandadan anime was like very well directed. Like the timing, the specific camera shots he used, I think was really strong. And so yeah, I think Dandadan will probably land well with the like, you know, the shonen crowd, right? The people who post like fan cams of Tanjiro on Twitter, right?
Is this gonna blow up like Jujutsu Kaisen?
I think it has the potential to. Yeah.
Okay.
Is it flashy enough?
I think so. Or at least I think the first 3 episodes are like. I would say the first 3 episodes are not necessarily like, oh, this is the coolest shit I've ever seen. Like, I think, to be clear, I think Science Saru is a very competent studio, and I think they do very good work. I think they're a very creative studio. But there are moments in this anime where you realize they are not a heavy hitter in the way of a UFO table or a Mappa.
I mean, like, their strength has always been in their artistry and their composition and their mood, their tone and mood pieces, not necessarily in we animated this fight at 3,000 frames a second.
Right. And so the thing I would probably say going into Dandadan is like, you're not going to really get those like absolutely insane UFO table Mappa, like, yeah, as you said, like 300 frames per second, like Sakuga moments.
And to be clear, like the reason I ask that is because I think the Science Saru factor, or like if they are playing to their traditional strengths, that makes it less interesting perhaps to the majority of the demographic and more interesting to me.
And I think that's kind of where I fall on this Dan adaptation, is I think Science Saru is really bringing some cool stuff to this.
That's great.
That I think is unique to Science Saru's like wheelhouse. Also, the OP is really good.
It has been interesting to me to see like how after Yuasa has left Science Saru, how they have immediately started doing more adaptations and contract work.
Yeah, it definitely feels. I mean, I think if you were being uncharitable, there is kind of a feeling that Science Saru is maybe selling out without Yuasa to guide them.
I would not say that so far, but
no, because I think
that's a very cynical take, but I get why someone might say that.
Again, I'm a little devil's advocate here, right? Like, I think I have very much enjoyed much of Science Saru's recent work, but yes, I think it is undeniable that post Yuasa, they're definitely pursuing a lot more, like, mainstream or conventional, commercial work, right? I mean,
to kind of like do the flip side of that, though, if they want the studio to keep growing and, you know, to remain in business, at some point they are going to have to do stuff that's more than just pet art house projects.
Yes,
you know. And I say this as someone who has loved the majority of Science Saru's work. Yeah. Like,
I guess oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, is it still En Young Choi in charge over there?
I believe so.
Of the whole studio? God, I don't.
I think she became CEO after Yuasa left, or whatever the top position was.
I mean, I would believe that she
is president and CEO currently.
Yeah, okay. Because like I would say that she is a creative talent, very close to, if not par on a par with Yuasa. And if she's still there, I do not feel any major worry about the studio selling out, for want of a better word.
Oh, definitely. I mean, again, Science Saru, really interesting studio. I mean, I will say this, right? Like, you know, their Scott Pilgrim adaptation, I thought, like, on a technical level, was quite excellent. What I've seen of Dan, also, like, a lot of fun. Like, in some ways, it actually does make me quite excited to see kind of what Science Saru does, right? Because, I mean, their next two shows that they are on track for doing is Ghost in the Shell and then Haru Itagaki's Sanda.
My God, that's right.
So,
Christ. What is that?
All right, so
some really out there choices.
Oh no, I feel like them doing the Santa one makes sense for some reason.
Yes, but Ghost in
the Ghost in the Shell
saying the words Science Saru's Ghost in the Shell is
I think that's perhaps a bit less wild than it might sound if you think back to original Ghost in the Shell, the film.
Definitely.
Which is, very much a kind of like noirish mood piece, which I think would suit their strengths. I think over time, Ghost in the Shell has become, and I think Standalone Complex is good, but it's definitely a more conventionally action-filled show than the original movie is, for example.
I do agree, Zig, but I will say, just to counter your point, like, there's no promo art for this Ghost in the Shell adaptation yet, but they did very pointedly use manga Ghost in the Shell art to promote the announcement. So the question is, is Science Saru actually going to go for more of the original Shiro Masamune?
Right. Is everyone going to be incredibly shiny at all times?
and like maybe irritatingly horny.
I mean, look, I'm not a big fan of that part, but like, Ghost in the Shell has been chasing Oshii for so long that perhaps a change
I would like to see
would be useful.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we can't turn this into the Ghost of the Shell cast because, hey, I got plans for my next backlog show.
That's 2 years away. That's 2026. This is the fall 2024.
Yes.
Ghost in the Shell, severely overrated movie.
But Dan again. I guess I do, having seen those first 3 episodes, I can say with some authority.
You've already done
pretty
your 3-episode test, yes.
Yeah.
I'm glad because I think there was a fear that, not necessarily that it was a sellout, but that more conventional material might blunt the things I enjoy about Science Saru shows, and to hear that they've kind of integrated the two, what sounds like fairly harmoniously, is encouraging to hear.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about another thing I'm being told is a big deal. Another Jump property here with Magilumiere.
I think it's Magilumiere.
Lumiere? Okay, we're getting more
French.
We're
Americans.
Yeah. I don't know.
I feel like if there's an E on the end, you're supposed to say... Anyway, whatever.
I don't know.
It's a magical girl thing.
I'm fairly sure it's Lumiere.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think if you take the E off, it would be Lumiere. But anyway.
I mean, you're closer to France, so...
Yeah.
I took French in high school, but that was 25 years ago.
This is Jump Plus. It is in that sort of Shueisha Shonen Jump sphere. This is about magical girls, and in a world where basically magical girls are the equivalent of, are like in the tech sector. They're the equivalent of startups and tech companies who dispatch their agents to deal with the monsters as they pop up, right? And so,
right, like you can almost think of like this is a setting in which like magical girls are like a regulated industry, essentially.
Yes,
right.
With like academic tracks and like training programs,
and
degrees related to the magical girl industry.
Mm-hmm. And so the main character is, a new graduate fresh out of college, trying to find a job, nice office job, but having trouble getting a job in this economy, and but stumbles across this small magical girl startup with some weirdos working there, and they appreciate her unique talents and hire her on, but not as an office worker, but as a magical girl. And so it is sort of about this company navigating the Japanese business world with magical girls and monsters and such. So the magic is all like, we programmed this on our computers and we are deploying it, across the airwaves or what have you, to your machine broom wand.
This sounds like, if you'll pardon the pun, laser-targeted otaku bait.
It's not like... The thing is that there's not at all creepy.
No. I didn't necessarily mean creepy.
Okay.
What I meant is we like magical girls and we like weird advanced tech.
Often office comedies.
And we like goofy office comedies where people gambler their way to the top.
But
it is very much aimed at maybe a more like a rivet counter genre of otaku.
Mm-hmm. I mean that's the, as G said, that's the kind of otaku I meant, but they're spreading a broad net.
You said like magical. When you said laser target is otaku and I had magical girls on the brain, I was thinking of like some of the Nanoha spin-offs.
I mean, some
should not be named.
I mean, yes, but also some of the Nanoha shows are laser targeted like this, which is what if we made magical girls kind of like a cool military tech thing? Mm-hmm. And I think this sounds like it's trying to hit some of those same targets.
I mean, it sounds to me it's more of like almost like a corporate layer, though.
I would say actually because it is true that certain Nanoha entries almost take a are almost directed like mecha anime at times, right? Like the difference I would say about Magilumiere is like it is very much almost more like office drama. In its like general tone and scope.
We are if a monster alert comes up, we are emergency bidding with several other companies to see who gets to send out their magical girl.
Gets the job,
with it, right? Yeah.
A scathing critique of capitalism.
I mean, there are talks about like there are pro and anti-regulation factions in the magical girl industry, right? There are people who are like, magical girls should just be able to like go in blasting. Like, why the fuck not, right?
Yeah. Why do we have limitations on the power levels of our magic lasers?
Right, and then there are people who are like, like every regulation in this OSHA book was penned in blood. Like these regulations exist to protect magical girls, and it's very,
I mean,
it's weirdly charming, you know.
It sounds fun if done correctly, right? I mean, I just had a flashback to like Bullbuster from a couple seasons ago or a year ago or whatever, where that was kind of similar. That sounded like I mean, if you read me the concept, it sounds like a similar concept. But
just swap mecha for magical girls.
Right, just mecha instead of magical girls.
I think charming is right. It is charming. It is not too much more than that, I would say.
I mean, like, I think we're only really bringing it up because, yes, it is another, like, it is kind of showing, I think, broadly and culturally the kind of power of the Jump Plus publication. Like, obviously, you're still getting big names coming out of, you know, the magazine publication, but I think Jump Plus has really shown itself to become like quite a powerful force. I don't know.
It sounds like it's
anime because, like, you know, the manga's pretty. It's nice.
It's fine. Yeah.
We'll definitely check it out for an episode at least, right? But yeah.
I was just going to say, it seems like Jump Plus is where most of the interesting stuff that's coming out of Shonen Jump is incubating these days.
It kind of feels like that, right? It almost at times feels like the developmental league that, because there's like less direct oversight over it, can kind of
It's where they
take these wilder swings.
It's where they put the stuff that is less mainstream appeal and therefore is more interesting to people like us.
Yeah.
Broadly.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fine. It's good.
I'm always willing to give magical girl themed stuff a shot at least, so I'll probably watch an episode.
It sounds interesting enough where I would give it an episode.
This is definitely not getting the like big push that something like Don.
Oh no! Like, this is definitely not the same level of push.
No.
But shout outs to God, what's her name? Koshi Gaia. Yeah, like one of the because the magical girls are essentially like, you know, employees of the company, right? Like, one of the fun things the show or the story does is like they kind of run the gamut of personalities from like girls who are like trying to live the kayfabe of the magical girl life to people who are like, I don't know, man, this is my 9 to 5. And one of those is like this kind of stereotypically like blonde haired like delinquent chick.
Yeah.
Who's also like one of the best like magical girls in the industry.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fun.
Sounds fun. All right.
Well, speaking of fun,
perhaps not as much fun. Let's talk about Uzumaki.
Oh, I love ramen.
I love Spiral Power.
Yeah,
I
feel like I'm spinning a spiral right now.
I'm not a big horror in general, but but specifically Junji Ito, I'm not a big personal fan. I mean I appreciate the quality of his work, but this is like body horror stuff and things like that are not for me. So I do not have much to add to this conversation, but I have heard a lot of people talking about it, so I thought it would be worth mentioning. Do you
Uzumaki is... Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, G. You can go.
Yeah, Uzumaki is, you know, probably the most iconic Junji Ito manga.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Is getting an adaptation, I think, by Toonami or Adult Swim.
Right. The other contenders would probably be either Gyo or a Teravami Garfield, right?
Right. But yeah, so this is kind of it is a big deal because obviously Junji Ito's work has been adapted before, but often to less than coherent effect. Whereas,
and to be clear, it's a very difficult task.
Yes, for those, I mean, God, you have to be living under a rock to not like know the name Junji Ito, but obviously Junji Ito is kind of famous for being the premier horror mangaka currently in the biz, right? His art is famous for its like very stark, disturbing material, both subject matter and its depiction. He has a particular knack for just deeply uncomfortable imagery. If you're being a little uncharitable, you could even say Junji Ito his horror is very much carried by his art, that the things he writes about are not necessarily even that horrific, but the way in which he captures them with his undeniably like awe-inspiring art is like the real strength of his work. And
I think I'd agree with that, with the proviso that I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. You know, I think that.
I think visuals are a big part of horror, so I mean, it kind of makes sense that, like, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, you were saying.
But yeah, so as a result, it's just that adapting his style is very, very difficult, right? Because he often uses like specific kinds of hatching and detail to like really emphasize a sense of grotesquerie.
He puts so much detail into each of those panels. It's a very not overdrawn, but kind of like a hyper stylized look.
Yes. And so that is just always going to be a style that struggles in animation. And so that's kind of why Uzumaki's getting a lot of attention, because it's been in the anime equivalent of like development hell for like what feels like as long as like, I don't know, the Pluto adaptation or something, you know?
I think it was announced in like 2018 or 2019.
God, yeah. And so the PVs that have been shown, like, the anime is in black and white, like the manga. Like, it almost like recognizes that color would take away from Junji Ito's work.
Yeah. I think it's a very smart choice.
Yeah, I agree.
It's a very striking looking anime. But I mean, I guess it just kind of remains to see like if it can pull it off the whole way through, right? It's 4 episodes. Like even the original Uzumaki is not that long. It's 3 volumes, so it's a It's a very short story in the grand scheme of things, but I think I think I'm not even the biggest Junji Ito fan myself. Like, I've read Uzumaki, and I mostly went through it going, "That's gross." But
I'm kind of with you, but I think also it's impossible to deny his impact on not just J-horror in general, but also its perception in the West. I feel like he is one of the premier names of J-horror who is recognizable by large audiences outside of Japan.
Right? Yeah.
Almost on his way to becoming a household name, you know?
Right. I mean, certainly if you're listening to this podcast, you probably don't need us to tell you who Junji Ito is, right? But yeah, I mean, I don't particularly like horror in general or anything, but I can acknowledge his like art is amazing and everything, and very like, you know, it's the influences, you know, undeniable. But I mean, it is kind of crazy that this is finally getting made too. But
like, it's something I will check out for the culture, so to speak. But I don't think I'm necessarily going to be like, oh boy, I'm hyped for Uzumaki.
I wonder, one interesting thing to me is, given the involvement of Western backers, I wonder if that was what it took, either financially or just in terms of the will to do it, to get it across the line, so to speak.
I could see that. Like, for better or worse, like, Adult Swim's productions have not always been perfect. I mean, we talked about Ninja
Kamui.
God, I was about to say Ninja Slayer. Yeah, Ninja Kamui.
Right. Ninja Slayer, a show that had a massive budget, so not a problem.
Yes, but there is some truth to that. Adult Swim is maybe still has some of that, like, we're going to do this because it's worth doing. I mean, I think they also have some belief that it will like do well. The rating, it will do well for them. But there is almost that sense of like, we are doing this for the culture, right? Like, because
and also, you know, as we just said, Junji Ito has name value definitely to the casual anime audience, and that gives incentive to Adult Swim to push for this.
Yeah. All right. Well,
do not watch immediately after eating a meal, is all I'll say.
That's probably a good place to leave that, yes. And only 4 episodes, which is interesting, but yeah. All right. Let's move on. I don't know if any of you guys have heard of this Trillion game. I've seen it pop up in some places because there's a live action Netflix show that's been going around, and I put in our show notes the inspiration behind the hit Netflix series, because as I was researching this, an ad for that on ANN literally popped up that said that. But
I'm holding out until they put that Chiron on One Piece adverts.
But yes, so Trillion game. it's originally a manga, I believe, about two dudes who start up a company with the goal of they want to be trillionaires.
Sure.
And
okay.
they want to be like the first trillionaires, and
a bit more achievable if you think in yen than in US dollars.
Yes.
Perhaps, yes. But yes, so they form this company called Trillion Game, and from what I can tell, like a lot of the descriptions don't really say much more than that, but from what I can tell, they basically keep getting into different kinds of business ventures. So it's not like their company does one thing. So it's not like the same thing every episode or whatever. So like, this arc we're trying to figure out how to start a social network site, or this arc we're trying to figure out some other thing or whatever. And they get
for one moment I thought you were about to say they keep getting into an increasingly escalating series of death games,
right?
And I was like, okay, yeah, sure. But as soon as you said businesses,
from what I can tell, there's not life and deaths, and I don't know for sure. My sense is that there is not life and death things, but there are like sort of like absurd, over the top situations that they get themselves into. It seems kind of almost campy to me.
Sure, I mean that's probably the way to make an idea like this genuinely entertaining.
Which sounds kind of fun, and like I said, there is a live action series that predates this, which is seems to be pretty popular. So, I figured
Netflix only makes good shows, so
every now and then they may stumble upon something. But yes, so I thought it was worth mentioning. I because it sounded kind of fun, and also a bit notable, because I've seen it kind of in other places popping up. So that is a thing that is happening this season. Okay, we can start trying to power through some of these here. So the next one I had on here, this might actually be the only original show on this list.
Okay.
Oh.
It is called Negative Positive Angler.
Okay.
It is an original show about. I will mention it's by Studio Nut. Studio name.
Yabai.
Yeah, fully Yabai.
King of
fully
Bullbuster.
Sick.
Yes,
they did do Bullshits, right?
Yep, they did.
They did. Although
I think of them as the Decadent Studio.
Yeah, I was going to say
So okay, look, Nut does not have a great track record, but the guy writing this did not write any of those. That's my thing. Right. My one bit of hope I'm holding on to.
Yeah, let's see here.
The guy writing it,
blown hot and cold, let's say.
Mostly cold, but the guy writing it,
Blue Giant is well regarded.
I think this is his first like original series that he's worked on. Although he did work on Double Decker, if that counts for anything.
Double Decker,
Doug and Kirill.
Double Decker,
yes.
Doug and Kirill.
He was the series composition on Double Decker.
Oh, okay. Hold on a second.
Double Decker was really fun sometimes.
And
way better than it had any right to be.
I guess most recently he worked on Free Ren series composition. So, which I would not blame him for any issues I have with Free Ren, but Free Ren's good. I don't want to I don't want to rag on Free Ren
even
much,
the bad parts were pretty good.
Yeah. So anyway, the show itself it's about this guy who finds out that he only has 2 years left to live. All kinds of bad things are happening. He's in debt and all this stuff, and he gets basically taken in by these two people that like fishing, and he gets into fishing, and it's like a kind of, it's, from what I'm seeing, at least they're going to set it up as sort of a more sort of, kind of fun, lighthearted, enjoying the last days of your life sort of thing, and which will probably end tragically or something like that. But I thought it looked pretty good. I mean, it's we're always looking for original stories that are it's adult cast, not high school type of thing.
Yeah, that immediately makes me interested on some level.
Yeah, I kind of really like the art direction and stuff on it. Like watching the trailer and everything, it looks pretty nice. And
my big... Oh no, go on, Joe.
I am a little concerned with the studio's track record, but it looks like most of the people working on this are not the things that worked on those other shows that I don't like.
Yeah, the director is sort of worked on some good things and directed some less good things.
Yeah.
My big concern with this is I'm not too concerned about the studio because, studios, like I said, blow hot and cold. My major issue is that fishing is the most boring thing on earth, and I'm not sure a show about fishing.
Well, I mean, I assume fishing is kind of meant to be a vehicle for examinations of mortality or whatever. I assume.
I mean, it depends how heavily they weight the fishing as a major factor of the story, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, my main worry is you tell me a story about a dude who's only got X amount of time to live is
how hard they're going to milk that, right?
Well, not only that, but
that's the biggest.
What's the cop out, right? What's the actually we discovered a cure in the last month or something.
That's really easy to mess up because you either get that or you go the other direction where it's just
key style glurge,
right? Misery porn, melodrama type of things. I'm not getting that vibe from the trailer, but that's the kind of thing that they wouldn't put in the trailer. The trailer feels very almost more of a healing story type of thing, right? But yeah, I think there's some potential. Go ahead, G.
Hey, sorry, I noticed I wouldn't do tangents, but real quick, Arrow.
Yes.
They explicitly say that Like a Dragon, Yakuza Pirates in Hawaii takes place 6 months after the events of Infinite Wealth.
Okay.
Do you think Kiryu is going to show up in that game?
Yes.
Yes.
Is he going to be is he just going to be fine?
That's
no explanation?
Absolutely. If you ask me, is Kiryu going to show up in X? I'm going to say yes, unambiguously. I have no idea what happens at the end of Yakuza Infinite Wealth, but is Kiryu going to show up? Absolutely.
Yeah, it got me thinking. I was like, wait, this is an old Snake situation. As we go further into the timeline, we will have to explain what happened to Kiryu.
I guess that game did get announced, huh? That was wild stuff, but anyway.
Decide whether you want to cut this out or not.
It's not.
So yeah, that I think that show looks like it has some potential, but there are definitely some
certainly worth a pun
marks. But again, we're desperate for original content, so there you go. There's an original one that might be good. All right, next one I put on here, 365 Days to the Wedding. Okay, you guys ready for this one? This is by the creator of The World God Only Knows and most recently 16-Bit Sensation.
Oh wow!
Oh boy!
And yet, and yet, I think he's finally done something that is not based on hardcore otaku culture / visual novels.
Wow.
I don't know what's more hardcore otaku culture than getting married and having a wife.
It's quite the opposite, actually.
Shinzo Abe, is that you?
Despite what Shinzo Abe may have you believe, that's quite the opposite. So the premise, it sounds like a pretty standard office rom-com. And as far as I can tell, neither of these people are hardcore otaku, but we'll see when we actually watch the show. They could still throw that in there. But the premise is there's these two people that work for this generic Japanese office.
The company.
And the company is needs to move some people to transfer some people to Alaska, and no one wants to go. So
I thought it was Siberia.
I think some of that got mistranslated somewhere. I've seen in more reliable places saying Alaska.
Some frozen shithole.
Either Alaska or Siberia or Antarctica or something. Somewhere very cold that you don't want to go to. And so nobody wants to go, so they're going to force people to go, and they're going to start by targeting people who are single. So these two
where this is going.
Co-workers decide, to pretend that they're getting married, so that they don't have to go to wherever, Alaska or wherever they're getting transferred, and hilarity ensues.
I mean, I too would go to any length to avoid going to the United States. So,
especially Alaska. Alaska kind of
is
the United States.
I mean, like, I get it's mostly like a rom-com setup, but I'm trying to think, like, okay, in real life, do you think any Japanese corporation has an Alaskan branch? Like, is there a Nissan Alaska?
Right.
Who owns that one Blockbuster?
Well, okay, so there are like places in Alaska that have civilization. Like it's I mean, it's possible, but very slim chance, yes, that there would be any need for
this will be my immediate Google search after this recording.
Businesses in Japanese
civilization in Alaska.
In Alaska. Yeah. So anyway, I like we said,
I'm willing to give him one more chance, huh?
I'm willing to give him one more chance. As bad as 16-bit Sensation turned out to be, as disappointing as that turned out to be,
those big boxes were beautifully rendered.
The fake PC-98 stuff was good out of that, but I'm willing to give him one more chance with something that is more out of his comfort zone and see what he's capable of with this. But we'll see. I'm also just a sucker. I'm a sucker for these kinds of shows anyway, so it's not just like the creator, but I would have checked it out regardless.
My prediction is that there will be a friend who is a super hardcore otaku, and that's how some of that stuff gets in.
I'm like 90% certain it will get in there somehow, but it's not like the point of the show, right? Which is
indeed,
which is a change, but all right. Well, apologies in advance as we move on to talk about Gundam Requiem for Vengeance.
That's
Hold on,
right.
I need to pour myself a drink.
Yeah, you can't escape Gundam discourse. Not when I'm here.
God, this looks so. I'm just gonna throw out there before we get into any details. It's like 3D CG Gundam, right?
MS Igloo, baby, it's back.
It's back.
Everybody loves MS Igloo,
and
man,
and they're going for a more sort of photorealistic style to it.
This is directed and written by Westerners.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, according to the basic laws of the universe, we had one good Gundam show, so now we must have a decade of bad ones.
Yes. Thank you, Witch for Mercury. Thank you for your service. So Requiem for Vengeance, I mean, this is only here just to, because this is the next Gundam thing that I will subject myself and probably Eero to.
I know you guys are going to watch it regardless. That's why it's on here. So.
That teaser was so funny. Yeah.
What?
I'm remembering the trailer from a few months back.
I mean, the trailer almost had Bandai hired this man energy,
Oh yeah.
Like Gundam in Unreal Engine 4 or something,
Right.
Okay, so from the top, Requiem for Vengeance is, stop me if you've heard it, a Gaiden story, as we call it in Nippon, a side story that takes place during the 1-year war.
Interesting. They've never revisited that conflict.
The setting of the original Gundam.
Yes. God, I mean, it's a spin-off focusing on quote-unquote boots on the ground, specifically the perspective of Zeon, the antagonistic faction in the original Gundam anime, kind of focusing
on...
Yes, Sig?
Well, let me explain to you why Zeon were actually in the right all along.
No.
In Gundam Unicorn, we found the Ledger of the Universal Century, which states clearly...
a colony! That they gassed!
Yeah.
It's not even they dropped a colony, they gassed it first!
It was incredibly funny to watch the trailer for this, which is very Zeon, these diverse freedom fighters fighting against the tyranny of the Earth Federation and that damned Gundam.
Look,
right?
There's a black guy in Zeon.
And it's just like I'm not going to say culmination because it's going to keep going, but like the lionization of Zeon, the repositioning of them as cool and good, actually, as time has passed, right?
Well, Shah Aznavour made the trains run on time, at least.
Oh, man. It's just... I can't... I will not... I mean, I will save it for once the show actually starts airing, and I can judge it on its own terms, but, like, very much, like, Requiem for a Vengeance sort of represents, in some ways, the weird cultural phenomenon of, like, how, in some ways, despite Zeon's, like, actual obvious politics, the ability for people across, like, multiple political spectrums to sort of, like, insert and, like, see themselves in the Zeonic struggle of the 1 Year War. I think this is very easy because the Earth Federation in the 1 Year in the 1 Year War setting, even by Tomino himself, has always been portrayed as sort of like the embodiment of neoliberal hegemony.
Right.
And thus, it is very easy, whether you are right or left wing, to sort of see some sympathy in the Zeonic struggle, despite the fact that they are outright fascists.
Yes, I mean, Duran Zabi says, "Have you heard of Hitler?" at one point.
Yeah,
that's Degwin saying Hitler, and Duran says, "I don't know, but he sounds cool."
Yeah,
and then
the problem has
Hitler's footsteps or something.
The problem has always been that like people mistook like giving depth and dimension to Zeon for being sympathetic to them.
Right. Like this is
it's like there was nuance built into the conflict intentionally by the writers, and then people were like, "Oh, that means if they're
right." Like it is the problem is that like Tomino wanted you to, in some ways, sympathize with the plight of the average Zeon soldier, right?
Did Garma deserve to be betrayed and crash into the ground? Maybe not personally, but also he is part of this fascist organization.
Right. I mean,
blame it on the misfortune of his birth.
Kukuru's Doan, right? Like, the whole point of Kukuru's Doan's Island, right? Like Tomino always wanted you to understand and imbue a humanity in every participant in the war, despite how monstrous the politics of their faction may be. And I think the problem is that the legacy of that decision is people taking that sympathy to mean endorsement.
So this looks bad, and also the content sounds bad.
Yeah, that's kind of it.
It?
Like it's like I don't like many of the redesigns in this show. I mean, I know this is going to sound very comic book guy, but just like I don't like the way they have interpreted many of the mobile suits in this spinoff. Like, it is very much going for that, like, 8th MS Team adjacent, like, grounded, gritty style of, like, oh, these mechs are, like, dirty, and they have panel lines, and, camouflage webbing and nets on top of them, and it's like, here's the thing, I should be the guy you are aiming that at, right? I am the guy who loves 8th MS Team and wishes all of Gundam was more like 8th MS Team. So, like, I am the target audience of Requiem for Vengeance.
I wish 8th MS Team was more like 8th MS Team.
God, we can't even get into that era. But yeah, but I think it's just like, it goes so far in that direction that it feels less like what if Gundam was a little bit more military hardware oriented, and it goes almost more into what if Gundam was Call of Duty.
Yeah,
I mean, it is very like the trailer is very the Rob Liefeld extreme, cool, dark, gritty energy stuff.
Yes,
you know what this kind of makes.
These are definitely pilots who are writing Blood Wake on their mobile suits.
As I'm looking at this, I feel like there's some like. I'm going back to a lot of old stuff in this episode.
Okay,
like Final Fantasy Spirits Within energy.
That's the most damning thing you could possibly say.
God,
and I kind of like that movie.
Man. Like once I saw like because like most of the trailer starts with like showing the Gundams and stuff, but like or the robots. So I guess these aren't technically Gundams, but the
it's fine. You can say Gundam.
It's okay, Gel. You can say
okay. I want to make sure I'm getting this correct with this crowd here. But yes, once it started showing the people, I started thinking about that. I was like, oh god, that's kind of like similar, like ripping the soul out of a Japanese property into like this.
So what you're saying is that this OVA series will take down several major companies.
Maybe.
We can only hope.
Yeah, I mean, if I could only somehow explain my disappointment at the time when the Spirits Within came out, after years and years of hype, yes, but that's kind of the similar type of energy I'm getting when I'm watching the trailer, but
it's just a little hard to take seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like Gundam can be a quite serious meditation on war, but like it was never meant to be this kind of like high fidelity.
It's more kind of like 1,000 feet meditation on the themes of war. Even 08th MS Team, which is famous for being the down in the trenches one, isn't that gritty, relatively speaking. It's still a show about big robots.
Yeah.
And also its characters, like even if you like approach 8th MS Team on the premise of it is a grounded Gundam, the characters themselves are still like anime people for the most part, right?
Right.
Gundam is a show about style, is a show that thrives on style and then using that style to make substance. But if you take out the style,
this is devoid of style. Yes. All right. Well, I look forward to hearing more about it as you guys watch it.
Oh hell yeah, man! I'm gonna.
I'm sure we will not lack for opinions on
what's the over-under on Great Gundam Project podcast, like saying it's good.
God, I mean, like
I've never listened, so
don't worry about it.
Gundam discourse is miserable. Like I truly like somebody's like asking me, hey, like how do I get into Gundam? And I almost want to say like don't, but like. I've definitely seen people like approaching this from a more positive perspective, and you know what, like, I will watch this. I will try to like approach this on its terms and see like what it tries to accomplish, right? And
by the way, the correct answer to how do I get into Gundam is watch G Savior.
But
yeah. I mean, it's a hard question because there are so many different Gundams that bring different things to the table, right? But,
yes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, like I said, that looks bad. It sounds bad, but
we're gonna watch it.
I'm gonna enjoy hearing you guys talk about it.
We're gonna watch the hell out of it.
If I don't masochistically hate watch like a mecha anime at least once or twice a year, like
what are we even doing, right?
You might lose your edge.
Yeah, exactly. I got to keep it sharp, man.
Yeah,
got to keep the hater juice flowing.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well. Everything else we've mentioned on this list is trash. Throw it in the garbage.
Now for the good stuff.
I want to start this discussion with a very important question, but let Joe, you announce what we're talking about first.
Okay, well, I saved the two best shows for last on this list. Yeah. The first being, Thunderbolt Fantasy Season 4 coming back and Banananya, but go ahead, Zig. What is your question?
So... they've already been to space.
Mm-hmm.
So what else can you do?
For Banananya.
Well, based on...
for both of them, actually.
Yes, for both of them, actually.
Based on the PV...
We're starting with Thunderbolt Fantasy Season 4. Of course, if anybody for some reason doesn't know what Thunderbolt Fantasy is, it's live-action puppets. It's... like the greatest
written by Geno Ibuchi.
Have you heard the good word of Taiwanese puppetry?
Yes. Grown men throwing dolls around with explosions. It's pretty.
Sometimes
pretty
Saber
rad.
Is there.
Saber does show up at some point. It's pretty great. But and it is getting a season 4.
The final season.
Yeah, they said they're going to do a movie rather than season 5, right?
Yeah, because every season has basically been followed. Well, was it one after 3?
No,
it was not.
Okay,
that was when COVID happened and
right,
etc.
Yes,
but yes, it's puppets in like
Wuxia China,
Wuxia style China,
fighting evil sorcerers and demons.
A lot of evil sorcerers and magic swords and things, right?
And every single character is the dumbest motherfucker alive.
Yes, complimentary.
I don't think it's any exaggeration to say Thunderbolt Fantasy is like maybe the favorite thing the GLORIO chat has discovered in the last few years, right? Like Thunderbolt Fantasy is like,
as far as like level of joy and universal acceptance by all of us.
Yeah, right. Just a joyful, like, just a joyful entity of a show, right? Just
only rivaled by Birdie Wing.
But yeah, Thunderbolt Fantasy Season 4, a little bittersweet, as Iro alluded to, like, Thunderbolt Fantasy, in some ways, a casualty of COVID. I believe Urobuchi's original plan was there to be a Season 4, a Season 5, and a movie, but that has been curtailed. I think it seems like that production is kind of, they're winding down on multiple levels, right? It seems like the maybe gas is running out here at the end, so they kind of want to just end things as strong as they can. But yeah, Season 4... excuse me, seems like it is going to be the final confrontation with two of the kind of two of the main antagonists of the story. Kase Mako, the what is he? Is he mantis? God, which insect is he?
He's the praying mantis.
The praying mantis was Ihyobo.
Oh wait, no, was Ihyobo, right?
He's the locust, right?
Yeah, locust, right? A leader of a cabal of evil sorcerers.
But also,
wait, Gel hasn't finished Season 3.
Oh, okay, sure.
And the other primary villain, Azabelfer, the red-haired demon who, as you saw in the second movie, what's it called again? Something Melody in the West.
Bewitching Melody of the West.
Yes, Bewitching the Melody of the West is Rofuyo's father. Yes.
And, they didn't actually reveal that until Season 3.
They've got the same hair. It's fine.
I feel like it's really obvious, but you're right. I just said don't spoil anything, and I just...
Yep.
Honestly, spoilers are not going to hurt me in Thunderbolt Fantasy. It's fine.
No, probably not. But yeah, so...
yes.
Anyway, he's TM Revolution's dad.
Yes. Right. So I think obviously the fun thing here is, like, yes, is finally seeing Thunderbolt Fantasy kind of cash in all of its chips, right? The fated confrontation with these two, like, looming villains. There's a lot kind of riding on the line here, right? This will probably finally tell us, like, what is the conclusion of Rin Setsuwa and Shofu Kan's peculiar relationship with each other, right? Like,
will they finally kiss?
Or kill each other? We'll see.
Right. Oh, right.
But yeah, I mean, look, man, like, I'm just excited to watch this, man. Like, Thunderbolt Fantasy is one of those shows that has, like, functionally never failed us, right? Like, broadly only gotten better with every season.
Yeah. Well, okay, so I will say that, and I've said many times that, like, I feel like every year the past 2 years or how long it's been, I've been saying I need to finish Season 3. I was not in love with the premise, because I think I'm still early on, like Episode 4. The premise of Season 3 where they're like around worlds or something. It's been a while since I've watched it.
It's a multiverse story.
Yeah.
Multiverse.
Into the Shofukan verse. I personally thought Season 3 was a little weaker than Season 2, but not by, like, any measurable metric. There's still a whole bunch of cool stuff there.
Yeah, I think for me it's more that, Season 3 starts out a little... I will admit, even for me, Season 3, I was a little like, all right, let's see where this goes. But I think Season 3 finishes very strongly. I think there's every character kind of gets their, like, haha, hell yes, this is the shit moment. So.
There's some really...
except Ken Sanaran, obviously.
He does his best.
I mean, even at its worst, the sheer spectacle of Thunderbolt Fantasy is going to be entertaining. Like, there's no way, like so long as they're are grown men throwing puppets around with explosions. It's going to be entertaining,
right? The
So,
physical aspect of it has always also been one of its primary appeals.
That and the like
sets
spouting,
are beautiful, the puppets are beautiful.
Yeah, that and the and Gen Urobuchi writing the like absolute top tier, like complete 110%
nonsense,
like
Wuxia dialogue.
Till we meet again amidst the hellish pandemonium.
That's like built into my DNA. It just speaks to my soul, right? So like that and like the just the spectacle of it alone, kind of it's like whatever the something. If the plot's not the best, then I don't care.
I've always felt that Thunderbolt Fantasy is very adjacent to Tokusatsu in that it takes its, it embraces camp in the fullest form of the thing, which is it glories in its stupidity. It is insane and deeply proud of it.
Right.
And, Urobuchi's writing is sharp enough to pull it all together into a coherent whole.
And I love when you do that, but in universe, it is so serious. Like,
absolutely.
Like everyone is so scared of the Screaming Phoenix Killer when watching the show. He is so funny. Because he is just the edgiest, the edgiest lord, right?
He is Shadow the Hedgehog in puppet form.
I am always a little sad whenever I see fan art online of people doing like a compilation of all the like edgiest characters in fiction. Like it's Shadow the Hedgehog hanging out with like, I don't know, like whatever, right? It's like I always wish Screaming Phoenix Killer was there too, because I feel like he deserves it.
Yeah.
Also, every single person calls him Exterminator of Life, Screaming Phoenix Killer. There is never an abbreviation or anything. He is always the Screaming Phoenix Killer.
I mean, just that example, right? Is like it embodies like Thunderbolt Fantasies, like.
It is very serious about its silliness.
Right. Like, it's such a strong personality, right? Like, it's just these characters, like, they're not the most complex characters, but just, like, the ideals they embody and the ways in which they do so is, like, so charming. And, like, and the puppetry, right? I mean, like, it's technical.
Very impressive on a technical level.
Yeah, man. Like, when you see Shofukan, like, stick a piece of bamboo in a dude's arm and, like, fucking, like, explodes it in 4 directions, and you're like, they had to, like, figure out how to do that with a puppet.
Yeah, right.
My favorite stuff is always when you get the behind-the-scenes video of how they shoot people climbing stairs, and it's just a dude holding two sets of feet on his arm and, like... putting it up the stairs. It's so good.
Oh, man.
So good.
Anyway, this is going to be fantastic. There's almost zero chance of it being anything other than.
If you haven't seen Thunderbolt Fantasy, go check it out. And if you have, you already know what we're talking about, so you're already hyped with us. Yes.
Unironically, right? Like we did in fact kind of save the best for last. Thunderbolt Fantasy Season 4 is probably going to be the thing we are all the most excited for every week.
How many Nendoroids will appear?
More than one. I don't know. They need to reissue those fucking things.
I kind of hope they don't play that joke again, but that was a very good joke when they did.
It was a very good joke.
Very, very good when they did it. All right. And finally, of course, I need to shout out Banananya. Around the world. Banananya is a short cartoon featuring a cat who is also banana.
Yep.
And his cat friends that are also bananas.
Also, I will say season 2 of Banananya ends on one of the most shocking twists in history.
I mean, yeah, but I was losing my mind when I called that it was a prequel, like way earlier on. So yeah,
one of your greatest acts of prophecy.
Yes. Of the Banananya universe.
It's the only thing that made sense. He didn't know who these bananas were. So yeah, of course we had. But season 1 of Banananya is they're basically all on some countertop where you would normally put your bananas.
Right.
And season 2 was they were on like
Banananya Planet.
Yeah, something like that. They were on Banananya Planet, and something or other happened, and they all crash landed on Earth, and Banananya landed on this person's countertop where you normally put your bananas. So this is what's how Banananya around the world. So
Yep.
A globe-trotting adventure?
Yeah, I want to see how where everyone puts their bananas in various countries.
What kind of national stereotype bananas are we going to?
Oh, yeah.
We have already had the magnificent Namaste Bananya,
Yes.
who was definitely not a stereotype at
Serves
all.
curry, yeah.
Yep. And Elizabeth Bananya.
God.
Yeah. So, like I said, we're finishing strong.
Yes.
Yeah.
Completely inconsequential show that nevertheless is kind of goofy fun.
Delightful.
Yeah.
Yes.
I would like to say that both Cop Bananya and Sheriff Bananya are pigs.
Yeah.
And don't trust them. Trust only your fists.
Right. Don't trust cops in any form, even if they're cute cat bananas.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
This show's a masterpiece.
Yeah. All right.
So what I'm hearing is next season is pretty good, huh?
Yeah. If that doesn't hype you up for fall season, I don't know what will. But I'm excited now. So that will do it for now, though. So we'll wrap up this episode with our housekeeping. So you can find us, of course, as always, at theglorioblog.com. Keep an eye out, as we will probably have first look posts coming. I don't know if before the next episode comes out or not, but around the same time. So keep an eye out on that. All right. Well, normally I would sadly normally I would be plugging our co-host page.
Well, you can for about one more week.
If anybody is on co-host, you already know that the co-host is shutting down, so we will no longer be found there. I don't know. Well, by the time this episode comes out, our co-host will still be up, but not the next one, because I think they're shutting down. Well, we can't post. They're going to stop posting, right? But anyway. So other places you can find us. I started a Blue Sky account, which is at GLORIO blog. We are still technically on Twitter as backup at the GLORIO blog. So you can find us there too, but at this point it's probably best to just check us out at theglorioblog.com. I am trying to post at Blue Sky and seeing how that's going. I think when posts go out, I will post there and everything, and maybe I'll post some of the little things I've been posting on co-host here and there, but it's a different format.
For
co-host
sure.
is longer form type of things. I could kind of ramble on about some of my stuff on there, and that's not going to happen.
We should start.
Yeah. I would definitely go on an Ani-Mayhem tangent on co-host. Maybe I'll do that as our final post there or something like that.
You should, yeah.
We should start a GLORIO MySpace.
Yes.
Live journal.
We do also have like Facebook and Tumblr stuff, but I'm not even going to mention that.
Play all that 64 kilobytes a second.
Yeah. I mean
MP3s.
I mean, technically Tumblr is the mechanically closest thing to co-host, but I don't want to go back to Tumblr. I'm scared to go back there. So anyway, once again, theglorioblog.com, at GLORIOblog at Blue Sky, and check us out there. Also, for the podcast, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Podbean, Stitcher, and of course YouTube, where you can like, comment, subscribe, ring that notification bell. The last two videos we put up had like half the views of what we normally get, which is weird, and I'm sure it's some kind of YouTube algorithm nonsense.
Damn, the algorithm's screwing us over, man.
But yeah, please like and comment if you're watching on there, and
time to bust out your best thumbnail face, Joe.
Yeah, I maybe it's because I don't put reaction faces, and I hate the whole YouTube thumbnail thing, and like people rotating their thumbnail in the first like hour, and God. I'm not saying that's why we're not more popular, but I definitely never want to play those games.
I mean, the reason we're not popular is because of our bad opinions. But I'm sure
the masses can't handle the truth. Like
that's the real reason. But I also never want to be playing those kinds of games.
Man is keeping us down.
I will also plug a friend of the site, Yotsu Ben's Updated Autopsy Report podcast, which is at the end of the Great Ace Attorney 1, and that podcast should be up the week this comes out, or the week after. So
I've heard a rumor that you can occasionally be found on that podcast.
Occasionally.
Where's the best place to find that at this point?
Updated autopsy.report has links to all of their various
places.
Forms. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Shout out to
friend of
the
the
crew
site
over there.
Yeah.
Friends of the site for sure. Okay. Well, that'll do it then for this episode. I almost forgot to tell your friends, tell your enemies, and we'll catch everybody next time.